Welcome to the Keep It Real Health Education series. In this section, we're going to be talking about nutritional changes you should make with age. My name is Dale Collins, and I will be your host. I'm an exercise physiologist, strength coach, writer, speaker, and researcher with over 2 decades of fitness experience. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology and biochemistry, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate in health and human performance. When you're younger, genetics play a very important role in your life and in your future. But as you age, lifestyle becomes the predominant factor. Upwards of 90% of your longevity has to do with your lifestyle habits, and nutrition is one of the biggest ones that we have. For a lot of what we call centurions, people who live to be over 100 years old, majority of their diets are actually plant-based. So for a lot of these people, sweet potatoes and even rice are main staples of their diets. Things that they do is they actually keep their meals larger in the morning. Lunch is a medium, and dinner is actually the lightest meal. This is very inverse to the way most Americans eat. Typically, we eat very little, if not nothing, for breakfast. Lunch typically is the first meal of our day, with dinner being the heaviest meal. Also, in other countries, most people walk upwards of 20 minutes plus a day at a minimum, and their lives are structured around constantly moving. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we walk very little. We really don't try to get out and walk. And then the last thing is supplements. So supplements are a big issue in the United States. They're actually $1 billion industry, but most centurions actually don't live that long due to supplements. They live that long by getting most of their nutritional values from real whole food. Supplementation is just as it sounds. It is meant to take up what you are lacking from your diet. So it's meant to bridge that gap. However, if most of your diet is actually lacking, supplements cannot bridge that much of a gap to make up for what you have failed to give your body. Your daily calorie needs depend on multiple factors. Obviously, your height and weight. Your muscle mass plays a huge role. One of the key things that we state is muscle equals metabolism. The more muscle mass you have, the more calories your body needs, because muscle's always being broken down and built back up every day. Fat, however, stays on our body without any help. So the amount of muscle mass will be the most significant factor that will affect your metabolism and how many calories you need. Then your activity level and any medications or medical conditions. A lot of people, when they get older, actually don't need as many calories. Number one, if they have actually lost muscle mass, their metabolism is lower. If they're not moving as much, then they're going to burn less calories. So what we typically see is for people who live longer, they actually have a reduced caloric intake as they age. They balance out the amount of calories they take in with the amount of calories they're burning off every day based on their metabolism and their activities of daily living and or exercise. The big issue with this is if you continue eating the same number of calories as you did 10 to 15 years ago, all those extra calories, even if they came from good healthy sources, are actually going to be stored as fat. And for most of us, we tend to store it in the belly area, which is the least healthy area. That's the area that's been shown to cause the most health problems throughout life. So that's the reason why extra weight associated with age becomes very unhealthy. Women who have reached menopause typically have a decline in estrogen levels and conversely testosterone levels. For those women, one of the things that we see is a need for reduced calories to help limit that storage of fat, especially in the stomach region. One of the issues, though, is even though your needs for total calories may go down, there are some specific nutrients that actually need to be higher as you age. especially when compared to somebody a lot younger. So it becomes very important as we age to make sure we're getting a lot of real whole food, a lot of fruits, vegetables, fish, and lean meats. All these things are very important to make sure we don't have any deficiencies in our nutrition, but also to make sure we don't gain any excess weight as we age. The most important nutrients as you age are protein, vitamin D, calcium, and vitamin B12. And we're going to be talking about these more in a little bit greater depth. But right now, the big thing I want you to think about is overall, as you age, you're going to need fewer total calories, but you need more nutrient-rich foods. So this is one of the reasons why we really state as you age, you need to try to limit or stay away from things like fast food, heavily processed food. We want more real, healthy, whole food. That's where you're going to find the greatest amount of nutrients and the greatest amount of protein, fiber, and all those vitamins and minerals that are so important with aging. As we touched on earlier, an increased need for protein as you age becomes very important. Muscle mass is always being broken down, and then it's always being built back up again. If you're not giving your body enough protein on a day-to-day basis, muscle mass is still being broken down. However, it's not being built up, which can result in a net loss of muscle mass. So on average, most adults lose between 3 to 8% of their muscle mass every decade after 30. As we stated in a previous lecture, you lose about a half a pound of muscle a year starting at age 30. Once you get up to age 50, that goes up to a pound and a half of muscle a year. So you need to be strength training, but you also need to make sure you have enough protein in your diet to take in the fact that you're going to need that protein to build muscle. So this loss of muscle mass and strength is known as sarcopenia. And sarcopenia, because the amount of muscle mass you have also relates to your bone density, we see weakness, we see falls, we see breaks, we see a lot of poor health conditions among people as they age due to a lack of protein and a lack of muscle mass. So that ability to maintain muscle becomes a huge issue as you start to age. So simply eating more protein can help your body maintain muscle and fight sarcopenia. There have been numerous studies as of late looking at the amount of protein needed as we age. So in one of those studies, people that increased their protein intake lost 40% less muscle than people who did not meet that protein intake on a daily basis. So simply eating protein, or in some cases even taking protein shakes or protein supplements, can definitely help decrease muscle loss. It can actually increase muscle mass if you're exercising, and it can help you build more muscle, which is going to help you maintain freedom of living to be able to go out and do the things you want to do as you age. The best way is making sure you have a protein-rich diet. This does not always have to be meat, even though meat is one of the most successful and easiest forms of protein. Things like beans, nuts, dairy, cheese, all those are also great sources of protein which can be included in your diet. So simply switching to a more protein-rich diet can help you fight sarcopenia. It can help reduce a lot of that age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. And if you combine that with resistance training, it can actually help you build muscle as you age. One of the important things, you can get stronger no matter what your age, but you have to be exercising, and that exercise has to be combined with taking in enough protein for your body. As we age, most people tend to move less and less. And this becomes an issue because constipation is a common health problem among the elderly. So taking in more fiber can actually help reduce this. Having things sit in your stomach or in your gut really is not healthy. So eating fiber can help with constipation. And ideally, this should be done through a good, healthy diet, regular bowel movements, making sure you're going to the bathroom on a consistent basis. For everybody, it's going to be a little different, but I know some people that talk about only going to the bathroom 2, maybe 3 times a week, and that's not the healthiest. That's not being regular. So making sure you have good whole fiber. A lot of processed foods take fiber out. We need to make sure you're eating good, healthy, whole forms of fiber. So dietary fiber actually helps the body become more regular by stimulating bowel movements. It helps decrease constipation, and it actually has been shown to help prevent things like diverticulitis, which is basically an inflammation of little pouches along the colon wall where food gets stuck and becomes infected or inflamed. Sadly, this is mostly a Western disease, meaning we don't typically see diverticulitis in a lot of Eastern countries or countries that have a higher fiber diet. So this is something that is common here in the United States, common in Western societies, but it doesn't have to be. And it simply boils down to our lifestyle habits and our eating habits. So if you suffer from constipation or other bowel-related issues or diverticulitis, you can really go a long way towards preventing or reducing these problems simply by taking in a higher fiber diet. So like I said, in other countries, Japan, Africa, etc., we see very few people who have these problems because they take in a naturally higher fiber diet. So making sure that you get enough fiber on a daily basis becomes important with age. Calcium and vitamin D are also important issues as we age. A lot of studies have really looked at the fact that as we age, we tend to absorb less calcium. So less calcium is usually also caused by a vitamin D deficiency because the body is less effective at producing it. So making sure you're taking in enough of these two components can really help your body maintain good, healthy bone strength, bone structure. Combine that with strength training, now we're really reducing those risks of falls and fractures. While your body can make vitamin D from the cholesterol in your skin when it's exposed to sunlight, as we typically age, the skin becomes thinner and it reduces its ability to naturally make vitamin D. So in those cases, making sure you take enough calcium and vitamin D with your nutrition becomes very important because you're not going to produce it nearly as much on your own. Even if you're out in the sun a lot, which is not always the best thing when you're aging because of skin cancer, we need to make sure your nutrition, your daily intake, has enough of these things. That's going to make sure that you get it in your body, it's bioavailable, your body can utilize it as needed to keep your bone strong, reduce your risk of fractures. So check the labels, look at how much calcium and vitamin D are on the foods you're taking. Making sure you get enough dairy products, dark leafy green vegetables. Those are great sources of calcium. And vitamin D is found in fish such as salmon and herring, but there's other great sources as well. So looking at your diet, making sure you're getting good healthy forms of vitamin D, good healthy forms of calcium, because you're not going to produce as much as you age, even with sunlight. This is going to help make sure we can keep your bones strong, help reduce risks and problems as you age. As we mentioned before, vitamin B12, also a very important element that you need or nutrient that you need. It is water soluble, so typically what that means is we don't want to take this in a great supplement form because your body's actually going to wash out or pee out what it doesn't need. It's better to get it through your nutrition. It's going to be more bioavailable and it's going to be in your body for a lot longer so your body can use it. And B12 is essential for red blood cells and for healthy brain function. But a lot of studies have shown that most people, anywhere from 10 to 30% over 50, don't absorb it as much from their diet. So it is bound to proteins in the food you eat. So you need to be able to take in enough of this. So if you're not absorbing it, you need to take in more so your body is absorbing the right amount. So that's going to mean making sure that you have a lot more healthy foods, dark leafy green foods, things like that. They're going to have higher sources of vitamin B12. So even if you're not absorbing as much as you used to when you were young, you're taking in enough so you're still getting the recommended daily allowance. And typically we see the best sources of B12 are in animal products, eggs, fish, meat, dairy. Usually what we see is people who follow a more strict vegetarian or vegan diet don't get as many of these sources of B12. And some people actually have trouble absorbing it because of a reduction in stomach acid production. So if that is the case, if you cannot physically absorb it nearly as well, or if you're finding maybe you don't or can't take in as much eggs, fish, or meat, this is the case where a supplementation might help. There are a number of sublingual, meaning under the tongue, vitamin B12 supplements. Make sure you're getting enough. If you're not absorbing it, even in supplement form, you're not going to absorb it as well as you were when you were younger. You may need to take in vitamin B12 supplement more than once a day. So however you're getting B12, whether it's through fortified foods, whether it's through supplementation, I know some individuals even do B12 shots. Making sure you get enough B12 becomes very important. As we age, we tend to have a deficiency of B12. So making sure that you're getting it. Number one thing would be through the food that you eat. That's going to be the best, the simplest, and the most consistent way of getting enough B12. If you can't get it that way, over-the-counter supplementation, sublingual, meaning just a little pill you dissolve under the tongue, or even potentially talking to your doctor about B12 injections if needed. Potassium is another nutrient that becomes more important with age. It has been shown to lower the risk of high blood pressure, lower the risk of kidney stones, even osteoporosis and heart disease, which is most common as we age. Getting enough potassium day to day becomes huge. A lot of times you'll hear about potassium in most sports drinks. So sometimes I'll actually have individuals, if they find they're having trouble taking in enough things that have potassium in it, sipping on sports drinks, your Gatorades, your Powerades, things like this a little bit throughout the day can help replenish a lot of those potassium stores. Omega-3 fatty acids. So since heart disease, cardiovascular disease, leading cause of death among the elderly, omega-3 fatty acids can actually reduce those risk factors like high blood pressure and triglycerides. So getting these by eating a lot more fish is going to help your diet. It's going to help reduce that risk of heart disease as we age. Magnesium is also an important mineral for your body. A lot of people, because of poor intake, medication use, believe it or not, can actually deplete magnesium in your body, and decreased gut function can decrease it. Making sure you get enough magnesium becomes very important. This is something where you may have to supplement it. Trying to actually make sure you get enough magnesium in all your day-to-day foods can become difficult. So this is an area where you may need a little bit of supplementation. Getting enough iron. Iron is a huge issue, and that deficiency as we age becomes huge. This can actually lead to anemia, where your body does not supply enough oxygen throughout the body. So making sure you get enough iron. Usually things that are higher in calcium tend to be a little bit higher in iron, but a lot of these things, eating fruits, vegetables, fish, lean meats, is going to work on getting you magnesium and iron. If you tend to follow vegetarian or strict vegan diets, then you may need to take iron or omega-3 as a supplementation, because chances are you're not always going to be able to get enough from your typical diet. Iron is found in a number of vegetables, a lot of plant sources. However, one of the big things that we see, they're not absorbed as well. usually the best source of iron is going to be meat. And best source of omega-3 fats are going to be fish. You'll hear a lot of people taking omega-3 supplements. That's always a possibility if you don't eat fish about 2 to 3 times a day. But the most important thing is making sure you're getting it. Ideal way would be through basic nutrition, good, healthy, whole food. Then, if you can't on a consistent basis, then we need to look at supplementation, especially even through potassium, magnesium, omega-3, and iron. One thing we see with people as they age is they're more prone to dehydration. Now, water in its simplest form is going to be a compound your body's going to use. It's going to break down the H2O, use those components separately in many processes throughout your body. That's why our body is 60% water. So making sure you stay hydrated becomes very important. So your body has a number of thirst receptors. Usually we state once you feel thirsty, you're already a little dehydrated. So making sure you're getting enough water is going to be very important. And a lot of people as they age tend to be on diuretics, tend to not like the fact that they're going to pee as much, but making sure you get that water in is important. If you're on a diuretic, it's forcing you to pee out, but you have to make sure you're taking in the fluid. You've got to replenish it. So a lot of times our receptors for thirst actually tend to be less sensitive. So we don't tend to detect thirst nearly as much or as well as we did when we were younger. And this can become problematic because number one, your kidneys actually help your body conserve water, but they tend to lose function as they age. Long-term dehydration can actually make medical conditions worse, can increase fatigue, reduce your body's ability to utilize some medicine that you're on. Making sure you stay hydrated becomes a huge issue. 1 to 2% dehydration, we can actually measure decreases in bodily functions, decreases in mental acuity, in your physical ability. So hydration, hydration, hydration. For most people, we state at least 64 ounces of water every day, and that's a minimum. So usually what we want people to do is have at least a glass or two of water with each meal. Number one, it will actually help you wash down the food a lot better, but it's also going to make sure you're getting enough water in. So simple signs of dehydration said, if you're thirsty, you're already slightly dehydrated. If you're feeling fatigued, that may be dehydration. Making sure that you're taking in enough water on a day-to-day basis becomes important. And keep in mind that things that you take in, caffeine, are diuretics. They will make you pee out more than you take in. So the water in your soda, the water in your coffee, no, that does not count towards that 64 ounces your body needs as a minimum every day. In some individuals, as they age, we find that they struggle to eat enough food. So a lot of people will have a decreased appetite. And one of the issues with this is that means you're not getting enough proper nutrition for your body to stay healthy. So things like hormones, taste, smell, depression, a lot of these things can actually change your eating habits. A lot of times the salty and the sweet taste buds are the last to go. We joke around about, we see a lot of people as they age, they always remember to eat the sweet things, but a lot of the other things they don't. And the reason for that is that sweet taste bud is one of the last things to go. So they'll always taste that, but some of the other things may seem bland because they've lost some of those taste buds. Also, your hormone levels showing hunger will definitely change. So you may need to eat less often and you may feel full a lot more, but you need to make sure you're consistently eating. All those things we talked about before, the protein, the different minerals, vitamins, all those things depend upon you taking in food and taking it in adequate amounts. So making sure that you're eating consistently for your needs and goals becomes important with age. One thing that we see is a lot of times there's underlying issues that can cause a struggle to eat. So things like tooth loss or dental problems, the ability to chew, loneliness and depression, illnesses, and believe it or not, even medications can decrease your appetite. So once again, making sure you're eating enough, making sure that you're getting those vitamins and minerals becomes huge as we age. We see a lot of people as they age where we have sudden weight loss, and sudden weight loss or sudden weight gain is not a good thing. So if somebody has a sudden weight loss, is it because they're simply not hungry anymore? They don't have that sense of smell, don't have that sense of taste, food just does not seem attractive. The problem with that becomes they're no longer feeding their body correctly. So that struggle to eat food as we age becomes important. That may be where you need to try a variety of foods, try things differently, try different recipes, different foods, so that you have some variety, so you're more interested in eating and eating enough for you. And nothing states you have to eat 3 meals a day. Dividing things into smaller portions, having 5 or 6 smaller meals throughout the day, every 2 to 3 hours. That way you're not going to feel overly full, but you're consistently feeding your body and giving it the nutrition it needs. So you need to make sure you, your friends, your family, if they're having sudden weight loss or a sudden decrease in appetite, you need to think about what's going on, what ways you can make sure they're getting enough calories, because these nutrients become very important. These nutrients are how their body stays alive, how their body stays strong, how everything functions well and keeps them going. One of the things that we state is what you do now determines your health in 10 to 15 years. So if you're not feeding your body well now, the next 10 to 15 years are not going to be better. They're going to be worse because you're going to have associated health problems because of not feeding the body correctly. Nutrition is a challenge, especially as we age. Making sure you have proper nutrition as you get older becomes more important than the nutrition you had when you were younger. Our bodies can make some things, vitamin D, for example. Our bodies can shift things back and forth, but as we age, we're not able to convert food nearly as well. We're not able to digest or take up vitamins and minerals. We're not able to produce things like vitamin D from sunlight. That means all of these things have to be taken in correctly on a proper diet. Making sure you don't have any nutritional deficiencies as we age becomes important. Making sure your food and water, you stay on top of those things. And then if that becomes too big of a struggle to get those valuable nutrients in, that's when we need to start looking at supplementation. Keep in mind, a lot of medications can deplete some vitamins and minerals from your body, meaning based on the medications you take, you may need to up certain things to make sure you're still in a healthy range. All of these things can help fight deficiencies, help keep your body healthy as you age. And this is simply a short list of some of the references that we used for this talk. A lot of these things you can look up on your own, and please do. Please look up a number of these references to see what's interesting for you. Dive a little bit deeper into it because there have been a lot of studies over the past 15 to 20 to 30 years that have looked at nutrition as we age. A lot of times we think of nutrition as we're younger or just trying to lose weight, but nutrition as we age to stay healthy becomes a huge issue. And it really becomes a matter of you aging well or not. So take time, look up a couple of these, read them a little more in depth to see how you can fine tune your nutrition to stay healthier. And please tune in for our next segment.